Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Pavel Gnatenko, Senior Product Manager for Data Science at N26. Pavel, welcome. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me here. Thank you. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Thank you. It's a privilege to have you on today. For those who don't know, can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Pavel. At the moment, I am working as Senior PM at N26 in financial crime prevention area, focusing on data science products. My background is computer science and data science, and for the past 12 years, I was working in different fintech companies focusing on financial crime and other areas.
Amazing, and we're going to tap into that wisdom and all that knowledge today. Today we're going to talk about the Triad of Data Science. So for those who don't know, and to start us off very simply, what are we talking about? What is the Triad?
If I think about data science and product development from my experience, I would say there are three key roles in this. The first one, how data science can push and drive innovation and the product features. The second one, how to balance between, let's say, cutting-edge technologies, techniques, and from another side, still have practical solutions and be able to deliver them. At the same time, iterative nature of developing data-driven products and how data science impacts actually the delivery of such kind of products.
So how do we implement this in data science? What are the simple applications when looking about product development specifically in data science?
I would say at the moment there are two key big areas. The first one, which is supervised learning, and I think we're all familiar with a lot of, let's say, applications of this area, starting, for example, from search, different recommendations we see day to day, let's say, in different apps we use, as well as, for example, fraud prevention. Where basically such kind of techniques, they help to analyze huge amounts of data and make, let's say, more precise decisions when we are trying to prevent fraud. At the same time, another big interesting area is Gen AI. And basically, if you think backwards, when November last year, the first version of ChatGPT was released, and it's around less than 1 year, we see a lot of interesting application there, starting, for example, from chatbots, image generations, for example, for food delivery, which I think from my perspective is very exciting space, since when I moved to Berlin around 2 years ago, my German is not perfect at the moment. And when I open, let's say, some delivery apps and I want to go through, let's say, the menu of different restaurants, I can't even see, let's say, the images of some food. And it makes, let's say, my choice very complicated. Or, for example, since like voice generation, I'm a huge fan, let's say, of tech gadget area. And for example, in the latest versions of Pixel and Android, basically with the help of Gen AI, it can even answer the calls on behalf of me and be able, let's say, to answer them, guide them, and complete them.
Awesome. So let's set the stage then. So what are the roles of data science in driving innovation, achieving balance, embracing iteration?
I think the first and the most important one is that we need to understand the value from the product perspective. When you want, let's say, to work with data science and implement some of these techniques before even think about, let's say, what kind of innovation data science can bring to this topic, you need to think about, let's say, long-term value, basically from the users. So I would say from one side, you need to keep an eye, you need to talk to your customers and think about long-term value. Since, for example, we had a lot of interesting applications several years ago where they can generate, for example, avatar for you But at the moment, if you think about these applications, a lot of them, they are gone because in a very short period of time, they were pretty successful because people could generate, let's say, beautiful avatars and so on.
Yeah.
But from the long-term perspective, they don't bring a lot of value. And I would say from this side, the most important one, and one of the thoughts which I heard is that you need to make sure that you have this long-term value vision from the beginning. Otherwise, when you're trying to apply data science, it's more research rather than product feature which will be used. From another side, you need to basically talk to your team, talk to your data science teams, and they have a lot of ideas. They keep following, let's say, new techniques and basically new developments like Gen AI and so on. They can bring, let's say, a lot of potential interesting and creative ideas, which in some cases can help you to uncover, let's say, even use cases which you never thought before. And at the moment, I would say there is an interesting video from Andrew N on YouTube where he's a pretty famous person in AI world, and he's talking about opportunities in AI. And one of the thoughts which I really liked is that we have a lot of stuff in the infrastructure layer at the moment. For example, different providers like Google, Microsoft, and so on. Then we have a couple of providers like OpenAI and etc. who can help you with, let's say, APIs and so on. But a lot of interesting stuff will be happening on the application layer. Since you can't really compete, let's say, with Microsoft, you can't really compete with OpenAI, but the interesting on how can you make sure and how you can utilize these techniques and all this infrastructure in order to uncover, let's say, new applications.
So how do we implement this kind of insights from someone like Andrew into our businesses on a day-to-day basis?
I would say from one side, as a PM, you need to understand what data science team is talking about, basically, and how these different techniques, they can be used and applied. So for example, what is supervised learning? So, and in which cases it can be useful, how Gen AI can be used, and which, let's say, potential use cases it uncovers. So that you will have this list of potential techniques which can be applied depending on the use case. From another side, that's your product roadmap and product development conversation with your customers, understanding their needs, what kind of priorities, what's important for the business, what's important for the customers. And then basically, I think it's between these two worlds. From one side, you have this big list, let's say, of potential techniques, tools, which can be used. From another side, when you're talking to customers, maybe you will see and you will discover that before we were thinking about this problem this way, but now, since, for example, we have Gen AI, let's take chatbots as a simple example. Now we have Gen AI and potentially how this new technology can enable and how it can really change the chatbot infrastructure and the chatbot application overall. That's, I would say, more from the feature value perspective. From another side, what's important, I would say this is a balance between all these cutting edge technologies and practical solutions. Since if tomorrow you make a decision that, okay, you want to use Gen AI or, for example, even supervised learning for some of your techniques like fraud prevention, etc., there is a big journey which needs to be done even before this. Since it starts not from the moment when you want, let's say, to apply this, you need to make sure that you have proper data in place, that you will have all the data needed, let's say, for the training, you know how to measure this, and it's aligned with your strategy, with the technical strategy of the company as well. Since it's not something that potentially you can just implement one API and go from there. Overall, from the, let's say, enterprise perspective, it requires a lot of operational work. And I had a lot of interesting conversations with other PMs where the OpenAI released ChatGPT, and then after that moment, a lot of, I think, companies, they had these conversations internally. Okay, let's do something. Let's build these features. Let's implement it everywhere. In some cases, it's possible because, for example, the company was putting a lot of effort into data, how to manage it. They have proper infrastructure, how to launch machine learning models, how to change them, release management, and all that stuff. In other companies, maybe it's not on that sophisticated level. So this is where I would say an interesting trick is coming into place. As a PM, you need to understand not only, let's say, the user side, but you need to understand, let's say, the technical aspect of your company and how the company is ready. Since potentially tomorrow, if you say, okay, we want to replace our previous chatbot or, I don't know, some image generation by latest Gen AI techniques. Yeah, it may be doable, but it may take you several years to implement, taking into account, let's say, data privacy concerns. Is your technical infrastructure ready, and etc. So I would say important thing here is that you need to have all these different pieces in mind, and you need to understand all these different things so that in the end you can marry all of them. At the same time, since all these, let's say, data science products, they require some strategical thinking. And in some cases, when you start, and I had even similar experience in the past, when you want to build a model and you start, let's say, from the discovery process, you don't even have data in place to train this model. So that basically you can start your project way before thinking, okay, how potentially we can generate this data, how we can make sure that this data will be good enough so that after some period of time, we can actually try to build something.
So it sounds like data science is kind of serving as a catalyst for innovation, and there's a lot of things that can be done. But as a product manager, you need to be more strategic and be the filter between all these use cases that can be done and what is possible.
Yes. Since if you think only about, let's say, user perspective, yes, you can potentially understand pretty well what your customer needs, what they want, and etc. But then it may be difficult for you and your team, let's say, to figure out what exactly and how to achieve this. But at the same time, if you understand that you want to use, let's say, data science, you know what, let's say, the team, the company, and the approach is capable at the moment. Basically, this way, it's kind of twofold discovery process. This way, at some point of time, you will see this opportunity that, okay, we have this problem, and this is how and what kind of technique from data science potentially we can use. And then after this, of course, the team and people around you in the company, they will help to actually to have it done in the end. But for you as a PM, I think it's important to understand this both worlds.
Yeah. Do you think we're running before we can walk when it comes to these cutting edge technologies and getting actual value out of them?
Can you repeat, please?
Are we moving too fast?
Super good question. I like this question a lot. Why? From one side, at the company and as any business, you want to make sure that you have innovation because it's important for the company, for the business, for users, and so on. From another side, you need to understand the impact of this. And basically, especially when we are talking about data science and all these techniques, what will the impact be? Let's say from very different angles. Since at N26, for example, since we are the bank, compliance is basically a super important topic. And there are a lot of, let's say, potential limitations of how you should handle things differently to be still compliant in the end when you deliver these solutions. And I think one super good example in this balance is actually OpenAI and their strategy about ChatGPT. Since how they started, they released the first version. So that they can show basically the technology, start, let's say, collecting some feedback from customers, but at the same time discover potential impact of this, how it can influence, let's say, different areas and so on. Then they started gradually, okay, we want to update it to 3.5, 2.4, at the same time collecting all this, let's say, experience and knowledge from the market. Since another is super interesting thing that usually data science products, they take some time to deliver them, to build them and deliver. But as PM, and I think it's applicable not only to data science world, but to overall product management, that you need to start getting this feedback loop from your customers. Since you can deliver, you can build these products in silos, and then after, let's say, 1 year or something, when you try to launch, you will understand that basically the need is different, or the world change, or the customers, they change, and etc. That's why from one side, OpenAI, they could, let's say, wait and release GPT-4. At the same time, they wanted to get this feedback. And now I think we all see how many conversations they have around the world about potential application and how it can impact so many different areas of our life. So to summarize this, I would say from one side, you need to be up to date and you need to know, let's say, the latest trends, techniques, and so on. But from another side, you always need to keep in mind, I would say, all the risks which potentially you have. Since data science products, it's not something, it's not a magic. You build a product and then it will solve all your problems because this algorithm, they're so smart and etc. There is a big part of this application layer in the end, which from my perspective will differentiate between, let's say, good products, good features, and so on. And another side of that, not in all use cases you may need data science, and this complex, let's say, techniques may be the same results can be achieved in a different way. And one story from my life, my professor at university who was working for the whole life in neural networks, he always told me that if you can find a way how to solve your problem without applying this complex neural networks, go for it first and try to understand this. Since sometimes, and I see this a lot, that these data science models is a black box for a lot of people. And it may work in some, let's say, areas where you can apply it, for example, since like you want to categorize transactions, for example, of a customer. So there they can see good statistics inside of the app and so on. But from another side, when you're applying data science to fraud prevention, is it enough only to catch and, let's say, prevent a lot of fraud? Or the main goal is to understand what's happening and basically what kind of trends and fraud or similar areas you have, so that in the end you may tweak, you may change something in the product to make it less attractive, let's say, for fraud behaviors and stuff like this.
So it sounds like we're in danger of overcomplicating things.
I think in the end, it will be fixed. It will take some time, since if you think about supervised learning, and how it started basically, and the first companies, the first applications, only, let's say, very big tech companies, they could allow this, and the process was super complicated. How to train these models, how to process them, how to release them, and etc. But after so many years, now we have way easier approaches. But again, I'm a huge fan of data science in this area. But first, my advice is that you always need to keep in mind, actually, if there are any other, maybe even easier ways or faster ways. Since technically from one side, for example, you want to build a data science model, this product, it will take some time to do all that stuff. But if you can have, let's say, quicker idea in order to try to deliver it faster, to get some feedback from customers, maybe in 2 months, you'll realize that it's not the way to go. Since we are not talking about, let's say, one piece of the product where you have this data science model, but you are talking about, let's say, the whole product infrastructure around it. And maybe such small steps before doing such big products will help you save time, or maybe get even to a more creative idea and then.
when you say more creative ideas, tell us, share some examples that you can think of.
One of the examples which we touched today, for example, image generation.
Yeah.
So let's imagine we have this delivery app and we have a lot of products in different restaurants, and half of them, they don't have, let's say, pictures. On one side, you can say, okay, we want to have Gen AI to generate all these images so that our customers can easily select.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll need to start collecting data, think about prompts, how it can be generated, what kind of infrastructure you need to have in place, and etc. But another thing is that you may even tweak this a bit. And for example, create some of the pictures, not having this complex, difficult approach, put them for some of the products and etc. And try to measure and see whether when you'll have all these images, it will really drive, for example, engagement of a customers. Mm-hmm. It will increase the conversion. To generate these images, it will take smaller time for you rather than deliver this end-to-end solution, Gen AI solution. But when you'll be experimenting, let's say with these pictures, by the time when I think you will be ready to ship your product, you'll have a lot of new already learnings and experiences from this simple. And then maybe it will help you even make your requirements better and clearer, so that when you launch this first iteration of a model or for this product feature, it will perform even better.
With these kind of examples, how important, you mentioned about short-term wins as opposed to the longer-term wins, how important is patience throughout the whole process?
It's super important. Why? Since, as I mentioned many times before, these products, they take some time to work on them and build. And usually what we see, let's say in the PM world, that some of the things people want to do fast because it's, for example, additional revenue, additional value for users and engagement, and all these things. But at the same time, in the end, you want to have a robust solution and you want to have sustainable solution. And you need to find this balance between, okay, I want to ship this tomorrow because it will generate a lot of value and, for example, really deliver this complex solution. But at the same time, which is important, you need to keep an eye what's happening around you, so that from one side you have this long-term strategy how to approach these things. But if tomorrow another technique similar to, let's say, Gen AI will be released, at the same time you still need to be able to adapt to it and to adapt to the market. And this is what I feel will be happening a lot, especially for Gen AI, since it's 1 year after the release. We see a lot of different applications in different products in completely different areas. But I think we all still don't know what will be the impact. And maybe in 1 year, in 2 years, when we'll have already all these different cases, all these different learnings, we'll realize, okay, this is how it should be used. This is what kind of risks we see, what kind of safety measures we need to put in place, and so on.
So data-driven insights, user-centric iteration, these are main focus points.
I would say innovating, the first one, which is about what's happening in the market and trying to keep an eye and learn and understand how potentially what kind of additional capabilities it can bring to you. From another side, balancing. You want to have sustainable things, but at the same time, you still want to be practical and be able to find this balance. Okay, when we can launch this, and will it be at the right time actually to launch after we spend? And in the end, it's iterative nature. And one of the things which I like when we are talking about machine learning is that the name itself The second part of this name, it's a learning process. It's not something that you can ship tomorrow, for example, and then say, okay, it's done. It will be working forever. Since in 1 year, depending on the approach which you're using, you may need to retrain this, you may need to revise, so you may need to change the approach completely. So I would say it's bringing even more iterative approach to development of these data science products. Plus, keep customers in mind, since you want to build this long-term relationship and value with them, so that they will keep returning to your product and will understand its value.
How much can we afford to experiment and get wrong when it comes to the users in such a new area, such as Gen AI?
That's a risk appetite. That's the question of risk appetite, and I think every company will be trying to apply this. In some areas, I would say it's less complex. You can drive, let's say, small experiments, see what will be the feedback and so on. In other areas, for example, like banking or financial world, where the area is heavily regulated, you need to be more careful. And you need to think about things like, for example, data privacy, still be compliant, how all these processes will be handled, and so on.
Interesting. Let's bring this home. What are the big takeaways from what we've spoken about today about the triad and how to implement that ourselves?
The first one, dream big. As PM, you need to dream big about your customers, about your product, and dream big about, let's say, the new capabilities which appear in the market. The second one, stay open and practical. Stay open to the outside world. Stay open to people in the team, to people in the company. Stay open to the company, and then try to understand what's happening around you. And while dreaming big, try to be still practical, so that the world can see this new feature, this new product, they can iterate with this and so on. And the last one, keep on iterating and learning. I think this is the way how it goes with all these data science products, and that it brings even more iterative nature. And don't develop this in silos. Make sure that if your product or feature at the moment is sustainable enough and you don't see, let's say, major risks, you can push it so that you can start getting this feedback loop and learn. Since the more, in some use cases which I saw in the past, the more iterations you make and the quicker iterations you make, the better the product will be at the beginning and this feature.
So what would your first step be? So for these three takeaways, dream big, stay practical, keep iterating and learning. What's your golden rule for these three combined?
I would say balance between all of them. And that's what makes maybe PM life a bit more complex, that you can't even say that you can focus on your dreams and what potentially would be great, since you lose the connection with the actual world. From another side, you can't say, okay, I'll be open, I will listen to everyone, think only about the practical side, since in the end, we want, let's say, to ship amazing features to our customers. And you need to dream about this, think about this. At the same time, find a way how basically to make this iterative process possible in your company, so that you can do it, you can learn, and you will achieve great results. So as a summary, I would say equally among all of them.
Don't forget any points, keep it balanced. I like it. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Thank you very much for your time and your rich insights today, Pavel.
Thank you so much. It was a big pleasure. Thank you for having me today, and we'll be in touch.
It's been great to have you on, and of course to the listeners, please like and share so we can reach as many people as possible, but it is. Bye from us. Thanks once again, Pavel. Ciao
Thank
for
you.
now.
Ciao. Bye-bye.